Okay, I want to introduce to everybody David Helsley.
Hi, everybody.
He's the Senior Principal Architect for Cloud Storage and VTake, right? So he's been, he started a Metal C training class, so we wanted to just ask him a few more questions to kind of set the stage for going forward, right? So the first question, so why did you decide on your Cloud Storage for systemz product to use a higher level language as opposed to assembler?
No, that was an easy one for us to tackle. See, the problem was we were trying to move a lot of data off of the mainframe as quickly as possible, and so we arrived at using a CTC, a channel-to-channel device, as opposed to TCP/IP or some of the other techniques. And there's a lot of reasons why, and I don't think I want to go into them right now. But there weren't drivers written for talking over the CTC. So we had to develop them from scratch, and since we knew one side of it was going to be Linux on Z, talking to ZOS on the other side, the Linux side had to be C. So that just made it kind of a natural decision to go that way. The programming languages were the same on both sides, and the structures were the same. That was an easy one for us to tackle.
Perfect, okay. And so why Metal C as opposed to some other high level language like Java or?
Well, our I/O engine, the piece that we were tapping into for cloud storage for systemz, is already on a zip engine. It's SRB code, and it's very efficient, and we had to keep it as streamlined as possible. So we didn't really have the luxury of jumping over to a Java engine for any of that, none of the ZAP engines. So we were already on the zip, and it was just an easy no-brainer for us to do it with the Metal C.
Perfect, okay. And so is there some, if somebody else was asking how to make that decision, is there some distinction about product, or do they just?
Well, I think you always want to start from the beginning and go through the analysis of figuring out what language you want to use in your product. So if you're starting brand new from scratch and from end to end you get to write the whole thing, then that might be a Java application. But if you're doing something where you have a predominantly an assembler-based product, it might not make a lot of sense to jump back and forth between Java, because the context switching and all that kind of overhead might be a little bit too expensive just to get over on a specialty engine. Instead, you might zipify your work and use the black box that Peter Morrison had developed, or do your own scheduling of SRBs which are already zip enabled. And then you can do that with whatever language you want. Predominantly your choices there are going to be assembler or Metal C. I happen to like Metal C and have found it to be a language that I can write very quickly, and the code that comes out is very clean. It doesn't have a lot of bugs.
Perfect. So any challenges to kind of make teams aware of? What did you learn? How did you learn it?
Well, as we were going through it, we had to do a lot of work coming up with our standards and our best practices and just style. You know, you're coming from an assembler background, trying to make code that's very readable, and so those were some of the challenges. But we also found that, you know, Metal C has kind of a stigma where people think it doesn't have a very rich runtime environment, and we found quite the opposite. That you can call a lot of stuff from Metal C, and it can be your own macros through the assembler directives, or it can be other functions that are written for you by the operating system. All the BPX Unix services you can call right out of the box. And so we've actually found the opposite, that it actually taps in so well with so many other things that it has a rich runtime environment.
Well, we appreciate you moving to Dallas. Everybody around here is excited to learn from you, so and we appreciate the interview.
Well, I love it. All the people are great, so thank you.